All right, got my audio working. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Um, Happy Sunday. Hope you guys have had a good weekend. If your weekend's almost over, and hope you guys are having a good weekend. If your Sunday's just beginning, like it is for me. Um, let's. Oh, do need to mention Thursday. Um, I don't even know what happened. Um, I didn't even realize that I had missed the stream until it was over. Um, I had lost track of my days and then realized it was Thursday, and um, yeah, it was I, that was totally on me. Actually, I should have probably tweeted something just to let you guys know that. Um, but um, just been a busy week, just getting things done. Focusing on some stuff that's going on at work, focusing on just stuff with the family and school starting and stuff like that. So um, it's been busy. But yesterday I had an idea. Um, I wanted to work some more with State, and in particular, uh, I want to focus on how we can use State to kind of control games, right? Um, Games are a classic place where state machines show up a lot. Um, and our Sudoku game has some game states in it, right? There's like a one state, there's an editing state, there's a playing state. There are probably some error states, things like that. We can analyze the game and um, convert it into our states and state machines. To do that, I want to get off of component store and get to signal store. I also want to um, we went zoneless. I think we are using experimental zoneless stuff because when I was checking, we were on 18. Um, and so I believe we're using the experimental stuff. If that's not the case, then we will definitely switch to that. The other thing I want to do um, is I specifically want to look at um, going. I want to go SSR for our game for Sudoku. And then as part of the SSR, I want to make sure that we're serving smaller bundle sizes and just stuff like that. Um, and creating storybook to 8.2.9. Oh, okay. I was like, I read that backwards. I thought I was upgrading um, to version 8.28 from 8.2.9. I had to read it again. Um, so those are my big plans to get us ready. Once we're ready, then I want to take a look at. I recommend upgrading the following packages. That are not storybook related. Interesting. We'll have to check that out. What is this? NPX Storybook Auto Migrate. Okay, so they upgraded their dependencies. That's fine. So those are all NX generators that did all of that for us, which is awesome. And so NX did a whole bunch of migrations for us. It looks like we're already at Angular 18.2. Let's go see what NX did for us. Anyway, that's where I want to get in preparation for going to X State. Once we're ready for X State, then we'll go to Stately UI and start drawing out some state machines. Once we've got state machines in place, we'll move them into our application. I'm going to be talking to Jan as I get closer to that, so that uh, he's been working on an XState plugin for Angular. I want to use his plugin. He's been working with the Stately AI team and the XState team to create an official Angular plugin. So I want to use that and kind of kick the tires there, so to speak. Yeah, I've got some big plans, but this is in preparation for a stream that I've been talking about, where building kind of a Slay the Spire type game. And the reason I want to do that is I want to build a card game. I'm really enjoying a lot of the card games that are out there right now. Like Slay the Spire is amazing. Balatro is amazing. Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers is amazing, right? All these games that have these cards in them. Signal Store Pog. Yeah, I love Signal Store, man. Oh, wow. You're at Ascension 17. Dude, you are amazing. Marcus, welcome to the stream, man. Today was almost a .NET stream. It's coming. We need to do the back end for our modular Angular stuff. But I just didn't have time to do the preparation. Marcus, thank you for the subscription, man. I appreciate that. It means a lot. Very, very kind of you. We need to do a backend for our modular state, so that we can actually add in our pieces that will communicate with the backend. That's definitely coming too. We will be finishing up the modular state stuff. I'm not sure how far we're going to take it. I still haven't decided there, but I really want to get started on the card game, like I was speaking. And Ascension 17 with Ironclad, that's amazing. That takes some real dedication and some real understanding of Slay the Spire. But the reason I want to do that is twofold. I want to investigate how to write like a plugin type system for an Angular application. So you can see this ST extension stuff up here. I was experimenting with I use Silly Tavern for chatting with AIs, and it has a bunch of nice tools where I can swap between Featherless, Open Router, and then AIs that I'm running locally. It's really, really easy, really seamless. It's a very nice tool, Silly Tavern, just amazing tool. And so I've been doing that, and they have this plugin system where they have a directory where plugins go. You create a manifest file, and then they include all of these tools. I want to look at how can we do something similar for Angular, and make it easy for people to produce like plugins for an application. When I think about something that would be really nice to do plugins, right? So this is kind of like the next evolution of what we're doing with the modular state. And that's why I wanted to explore the modular state first. Hey, TBD Gamer, welcome to the stream. Like what kind of plugins? That's a great question. So card games, right? When we think about card games, what kind of plugins can we do? If you think of, like Luck Be a Landlord, right? There's all these different mods that you can add to it that add new cell types, right? If you think about Slay the Spire, there's all these different mods that add new cards or new characters or new stuff like that, right? Um, what if Angular? What if we could create an Angular application very similar? Um, what would be the implications there? And one of the best ways I could think of doing that is something like a card game, right? Where the mods themselves, like the base game itself may have a few cards, but then the rest of the cards can all just be mods that we add to the game. Um, and we can look at how would we extend our application to allow it to be modular enough that somebody could drop a file, a package in our directory and change our application. Um, and where would this be useful? I can think of a bunch of different ways where this could be useful. Say, for example, you want to produce something similar to like Wix or um, something like that, where you have clients, they would have their own directory, but maybe they want to change the way your application works. Well, what if they could drop packages in a folder that they could drill that could change the way their website works, right? Um, so plugins like that. So I want to explore that first with a game because I think it will be easier to think about. And then down the road, maybe we mod like maybe we add the ability to mod um, our modular state stuff, right? Um, and see what that means for us. Um, so, we're going to go a bit deeper, but I want to think about software on the web a little bit differently. Um, and I was really inspired by the way Silly Tavern does its extensions. I originally was using their scripting language to think about that, but I don't really want to write my own scripting language. I don't want to write a parser and all of that stuff. Um, so then I looked into their extensions, and their extensions aren't documented very well. But the extensions that exist already do a very good job of teaching you how to use them. And so that's what I want to take a look at. Anyway, let's take a look at the migrations that were run for us. This is an NX migration. They're updating the workspace of Storybook 8. So that's still the Storybook 8 stuff. Update the Angular CLI package to version. This is probably the 18.1 upgrade. Ensure module federation ETS is turned off by default. We're not using module federation. That's another thing we might take a look at in the future. Update the Angular CLI package version to 18.2. And then ensure target defaults are set correctly for module federation. And then updates calls to after render with an explicit phase to the new API. So after render changed in 18.1, this runs that migration for us. I do want to run some of the 18.2 migrations just to see if there's anything that they can fix for us. That's what I was looking at before the stream. You guys may have noticed that I've moved to the Zen browser from Arc. Arc is a nice browser, but I am liking Zen. That I'd probably be switching back and forth between the two. The one thing about Zen is Firefox based. And so we still get access to like the uBlock origin, which is nice. I've been using AdBlock in Chrome, but I really like uBlock Origin. This is an interesting one that we'll have to look at if we ever come across a site that pops over like something that says, "Hey, you've got to subscribe," right? It allows you to remove that, which is kind of cool. Um, this one just, you know, learns how I browse the web and works on privacy. Um, Zen is very privacy focused. Um, and then this one will allow us to zoom web pages. I added this one specifically for just streaming and stuff. And then of course we've got Dark Reader. Zen does a lot of stuff that Dark Reader does already, which is really nice. Um, in my personal, the other cool thing about Zen is we've got different workspaces. Um, and along with that comes different profiles. Um, and I don't have to attach these profiles to like a Google account or something like that, right? Which is really cool. So, I've got a streaming profile, I've got a default profile, um, stuff like that. Um, and I can have different extensions installed for different profiles. Um, so, like in my personal browsing with Zen, um, I'm using ScriptMonkey, which is an amazing tool. It allows you to add new functionality to sites. I really like ScriptMonkey. I'm also using NoScript, but I don't want to deal with NoScript. Adds some really cool tools, but it also is a bit of a pain, and I don't want to deal with that pain on stream. In my personal browsing, I love NoScript. And those tools have become a bit more difficult in Chrome specifically. So I am looking at a Firefox-based browser on purpose. Um, but I want to see what the tools are like and what the experience is like. If I find that I'm lacking something or I want certain tools, we may go back to a Chrome-based browser, so Arc. Um, but I definitely want to take a look at Zen. I really have been enjoying it for non-development based work, but when I was developing the plugin, I was working in Chrome, um, so I haven't worked development-wise um, in Firefox yet. So we'll see how that experience is. Anyway, all of our plugins are there. Um, looks like that we've upgraded to Angular 18.2, which is cool. Storybook upgraded. We saw the different upgrades. So we probably got some stuff to fix up there. I'm willing to bet. TSConfig base, nothing changed. So it looks like none of the migrations really did anything for us outside of upgrading packages, and that's okay. Um, so upgraded NX to the latest. Oh, that's another piece of news. You guys may have seen on Twitter that I got my tickets to Monorepo World. That's the conference that NX is doing this year. It's in, um, I want to say San Jose, but it's not San Jose. It's right next to San Jose. It's the Museum of Computing. Um, uh, One of the weird things about this bothers me. Um, so if we go and I try to go to monorepo.world, oh, it works. Oh, nice. Comcast unblocked us. This used to be blocked by Comcast as a spam site, um, and it was really frustrating. So for me to access monorepo.world, I had to be on a VPN. Let me make sure I'm not on a VPN. Um, let's see. Where is? No, I'm not. So I use Surfshark for my VPNs. I'm not advertising for them or anything like that. I've just been with them for a while. They have some tools that I really like. So I could connect to like a Surfshark VPN and get past the content blocks that um, Comcast put in place. I was really frustrated, and I actually got on the. I got. Well, wait, maybe. So here's one of the cool things about Zen. Let's go take a look. So my settings are unique per workspace and per profile, not per workspace, per profile. But one of the really cool things about Zen is they've got the Firefox, security. We're on standard to make it easy. You could turn on strict, and this basically will turn on no script for you. And where is right here, DNS over HTTPS. So the default protection is so when it originally comes, it's got my DNS over HTTPS turned off, right? I've gone to increase protection here, which basically means it's going to use DNS over HTTPS. I also am not a big fan of Cloudflare. I hate all their pop-ups and crap that show up all over the web. So I'm using NextDNS. I am thinking about potentially looking at a DNS server, or a DNS provider. There are a couple of DNS providers that would allow me to control like content and stuff in my house better. I've got some daughters and stuff, and using DNS providers, we could control like sites and things like that. And that could be done at a router level. So there's that potential. But the other thing that I really like is DNS over HTTPS makes it very difficult for intrusive ISPs, right? Your internet service providers. It makes it very difficult for intrusive ISPs to sniff your traffic and profile you and figure stuff out. And so I'm not sure. Well, we can test this, right? Because I'm using DNS over HTTPS here. In my personal browsing, I like to go to max protection, which basically says that it's always going to use, and we'll stay here. We're going to go max protection. It's going to tell me if it can't use an HTTPS DNS server. So it'll pop up a warning saying, hey, we have to do this over a different connection. So we're gonna stay here. So we'll close this. But we can see if the real and the reason we went here is Monorepo World is in Mountain View, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I really like the NX people. I've worked with a lot of them. Some of them show up to the stream. So, does your employer send you to these conferences, or are you paying for yourself? A little of both. EBD Gamer. So full transparency, with the Monorepo World, NX reached out and asked if I would like to go. And I said yes. I am paying for my own travel, so my flight and hotel I'm paying for. I'm also taking time off work to attend. So this is a conference that they're not paying for. In the past, my work has paid for like NG when I've attended, and they're usually very good about paying for conferences. There's a budget for that. Michael asks, doesn't Google help GDE with conferences? They do. So I haven't used the travel yet for GDE stuff. I need to get better about that. They have a tool for linking GDEs to speaking. So within your region, they'll probably help you out depending on the size of the conference. If you try to go outside of your region, then there's a whole bunch of factors that come into play. So usually with conference speaking, the conferences, like the bigger conferences, will probably get you there. Right? You're traveling, your hotel, and stuff like that if you're speaking. Smaller conferences, it's really amazing that Google will allow smaller conferences to get GDEs and experts right to their conferences. And I think that's amazing. I've never used it, so I can't tell you more than that. But there is that possibility. I've just never had to use it. Like with Monorepo World, I'm attending basically as a guest, right? So Google's not going to pay for me to go, right? If I'm going as a GDE to speak at the conference on Angular, then that's when we might start talking about stuff like that. But yeah, Monorepo World. I love NX. I'm really thankful that they reached out and invited me to come. I'm not speaking or anything. I'm just going, as an attendee. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. What's the something else that I got? Oh, I was gonna look at so if I look at Zen browser download, so the Zen browser app has been blocked by Comcast at the. So this one is going through too. So let's pull up Arc, right? Because Arc is Chrome based. Let's go here and let's go to Monorepo World or monorepo.world. Right. Yeah. See that? And this is my frustration. And this is why I'm using DNS over HTTPS in Zen. And why I'm looking at doing DNS over HTTPS at the router level for my house. One, with a DNS provider, like I said, I can control stuff. But two, this is stupid. I can't turn this off. I would go into my Comcast stuff, but I don't want to potentially give away information that's in there. It could open up my network. But the Comcast stuff that I have, there's a tool that they add that that allows me. It's basically like a it's a web filter, right? The problem is I can't turn off malware and phishing, and I went in and added Monorepo World as an exception, right? I want to go to this site. When I went to go book my tickets, I was so frustrated. So what this tells me is that Comcast is sniffing my traffic, but because I'm doing, stuff over HTTPS, it's all encrypted. My DNS stuff is all encrypted here. They can't tell what I'm doing. Here, I'm using the Comcast DNS servers. And so when I make that request, they're going, oh yeah, he's going here. They send this back. It tells my router, this is the page. This is the page that I have set up when something's blocked at the router level. So like if we go take a look at the Zen browser app, right? This one's even worse. And this is one of my frustrations with like ISPs in general. Right? My browser's just like, hey, the site can't be reached. We don't know why. And the thing that tells me that it was my ISP is the connection was reset. That's really frustrating. Why is my connection being reset, right? Why is my IP resetting my connection? And that's why, like, when I get on a VPN, now I'm using the VPN's DNS servers and things like that. So I'm outside of Comcast's network. They can't do stuff like this to me. Um, so one thing I highly recommend, and your ISPs are going to hate this, right? Because they do a lot of, hey, ciao. There is a guy called Jason going to Mono Repo World. I was just talking about that. And I will be there. Will you be there, Chow? So if you guys didn't know, Chow works for NX. So the last time have we met in person at NGConf, right, Chow? That's when you told me the story about driving Brandon to the airport, or did you tell that story at TinyConf? We met at NGConf because Chow was showing me. If you ever meet Chow in person, you should see his pen spinning. Like, he is amazing, and watching it in person is just crazy. Your wife and kid will be there as well. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to meeting them. I get in the Sunday morning before. My flight touches down in San Jose at like 9 a.m., I believe, maybe 10 a.m. And then I'm going to head over to the hotel right there near the conference and probably see if they can hold my bags for me. So I'll be there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then I fly out Wednesday around like 11. So I'm looking forward. I've got a lot of friends at NX, so I'm really looking forward to this one. You keep telling your employer about conferences and then paying for it just before they offer to pay for it, Shake. Ask them if you pay for it and they offer to pay for it and you've already paid. Ask if you can submit your submit your receipts for reimbursement. Because one, if you have employees at your company that are paying for conferences yourself, you should really look at paying for conferences for those employees, because those employees are showing you that they care enough about programming and their craft that they're willing to go pay for conferences and things outside of work themselves. So that's amazing, Dota 2 attitude. You don't buy anything too expensive. It doesn't, like, that's beside the point. You should definitely let them pay, right? And see if they'll expense it. By you paying for stuff like that, you are showing your dedication to being a programmer, right? Like, a lot of people will ask me, what's the difference between, juniors and seniors and whatever, right? One of the biggest differences that gets you from junior to senior and senior on up is your dedication, right? People who are willing to go out and pay for conferences on their own, whether or not their employer pays for it, those are people who are dedicated. There are other benefits to going to conferences too. And depending on the size of your company, they may or may not matter. The networking is huge. For you personally, it's big, right? Just to get to go meet people in person and get to know people. So me attending conferences really allowed me to meet a lot of GDEs in person and just get to know them, right? It's been amazing. And I get to meet some of the people that I would never meet otherwise, right? So people like Minko and Emma Tversky and Mark. I always want to call him Mark Texan because that's his Twitter handle. What is Mark's last name? Mark. Oh man, it's gonna bother me. it'll come to me halfway through the stream. But meeting people like that, yeah, yeah. Joe Eames said at the Angular Plus show that you could reach out for a discount. And so ngconf, and Joe is an amazing person. Um, I love Joe and Aaron. They're the two organizers of ngconf. Um, Amazing people. And in the past, I've done things for ngconf where ngconf has given me tickets, right? I'm also lucky that ngconf has always been in Salt Lake, which is, about half an hour to 45 minutes north of me, depending on traffic. Um, so um, their their conference, that wears their heart on their sleeve, right? And I'm sure a lot of other conferences are that way. Mark Thompson, thank you, Marcus. I knew as soon as I heard it, I was going to be like, right. So they're the very public face. Those three are the very public face of the Angular team, right? Um, but I've also got to meet Angular team members, that aren't as public. And those are the ones I don't want to go mentioning because I'm going to forget somebody. And it's always scary when you forget somebody. Like, I just forgot. Um, I just forgot Mark's last name, right? I only know his Twitter handle. You'll be there Saturday, Chow. So you'll be there a lot longer than me. That's awesome. Um, yeah, if you're near conferences, and the other thing to do, if you want to start speaking at conferences, is to build up a speaking profile. How can you do that? Start doing lightning talks at things like the Angular community meetup, right? So submit CFPs with a lightning talk. A lightning talk's like a 5-minute talk, but it gives you experience. But the benefit to that is that like places like Angular community meetup are going to put your stuff on YouTube. So when you go, to your sessionized profile, you can start adding those YouTube videos. And so conferences can go look and see, how you speak and things like that. And that's going to give them a much better idea of how you are as a speaker, right? So, build up your sessionized profile, start speaking at, places that are going to give you YouTube videos. TinyConf is another good one to do, they're going to put you on YouTube. Um, yeah, Marcus is one of the organizers of the Angular community meetup. If you guys don't know, and I used to be. They're an amazing organization, and the people that work on that organization. The reason I stepped down was because I didn't work as hard as everybody else, and I was feeling bad. Like the people that work on the community meetup work so hard to make sure that that's an amazing place to be. And TinyConf this year was crazy too. Yeah, it was amazing. Marcus is also an organizer for TinyConf. So Marcus is out there in the community, and that's if you want to do conferences, that's a good way to go too. Because if you get your name recognized, right, and then maybe you can submit a CFP to a conference you want to attend, maybe they accept you, and then you'll probably get your ticket for free at least, maybe your hotel, maybe your travel, depending on the size of the conference and their budget, right? It's not guaranteed, but a lot of times just getting the ticket is enough to um, you know to persuade your employer, especially if you're going to speak. Then maybe your employer is going to want to be a part of that. And if they're not, then you can book travel and hotel and stuff. But depending on your budget, um, there are lots of ways to do it. And if you guys ever have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm not as experienced with it as others, but building your social media preference or your social media presence is going to be big. I do have some experience there. I tell people that being a streamer just means that. Oh, that wasn't Marcus. That was Michael that said TinyConf this year was crazy. It was a lot of fun. I just saw the M and thought it was Marcus, but it's Michael. Um, anyway, yeah. when I talk about, when people ask me what does it mean to be a streamer, basically I've become a marketing bot for myself. Um, um, you know, you're constantly telling people about what you're doing and things like that, and sometimes it gets annoying. If you guys think it's annoying, it also annoys me that a lot of the times I have to be like, "Hey, I'm doing this on," it just anyway. Um, I realize that it's annoying to you guys. This really bothers me though, um, because this is me proving that it's my ISP getting in the way, right? Um, this one is particularly frustrating. If we look, right, we've gone to the same place. Um, so there, there's this software at Comcast called Sandvine, I believe it's called. And its whole job is to do this to you. I need to go look it up. It's been a while since I've looked at it. But like, Chow, this was the other one that I was really struggling with. So when I was talking with Austin about the tickets and stuff, I literally could not go to the site on my personal network. If I go to a VPN, or if we go here and we look with DNS over HTTPS and Comcast can't sniff my DNS traffic, suddenly things work, right? So the other thing is that I'm on a professional account for Comcast. I should be able to turn this stuff off and control it. And I reached out to their support. Their support was not very helpful. So yeah, um, it bothers me. Yeah, Chow's a streamer. So the fun thing about this is that there are a lot of streamers here in my various chats. Chow streams, and being a marketing bot, he totally understands that. TBD Gamer is a big streamer. He understands that. Um, I wrote some tests around .NET login today. Some of those authentication classes are not easy to test. Dude, when I do my .NET stream, I definitely want your help. I am very rusty at .NET. So the last time I used .NET to do APIs was before the minimal APIs. So that's probably been like 3 or 4 versions back, I think. User manager or role manager is a mess, and that is so. There's an interesting dynamic that goes on with .NET, and that I totally get what you're saying, Dota 2 attitude. There are a lot of classes that are not written to be unit tested, right? One of the biggest ones that I always struggled with was the I want to call it the date time class. Is that the class? It's been a long time. But datetime.now. Yeah, it is the datetime class, right? Datetime.now. You use that all over the place in .NET. That is a static function on a class. Unit testing that is crazy. Yeah, exactly, right? Unit testing those is crazy because replacing static functions is difficult to do. And so usually what you do, at least what I did, there's 2 ways you can go. You can pay for some super expensive testing tools. When I say super expensive, I mean like you're talking $500 per seat, right? And those allow you to do some crazy stuff with reflection and things like that. I opted not to go that route, and instead I would wrap all of the date stuff with a class that I injected um, through the DI container that I was using in .NET, and then I could replace that class that I injected and do the testing there, right? Um, and so that's the um, that's the um, that's the stuff that I think, when people talk about putting facades around things, um, it's really, really powerful to do that with like classes that are static functions on, right? And date time, yeah. Is that date time also an answer? I think it is, and you pass it in the parameter. Yeah, that so when we talk about IOC, what you're talking about too, right? Where basically what you're doing is you're taking the dependency out of the class and you're instead adding that to it through the constructor, right? Like that lambda, or yeah, in .NET I believe those are called lambdas, right? But basically it's an anonymous function. So that anonymous function that you're passing now becomes a dependency. So you're injecting dependencies in the class, right? That you're basically doing IOC. Yeah, because you don't see bugs, and that's the problem, right? And a lot of times it gets even worse than that. That you aren't even really passing dates. You're just doing like a datetime.now to use that. Maybe in your class you want to check, how far in the past is this? So you pass it, you just add datetime.now to the function, and it becomes difficult to test. Anyway, we have been way off topic today, and I haven't really done a whole lot. But um, like my Sunday streams, I enjoy a lot because you guys come and you're really really helpful, and I love that. Ask a lot of questions and do a lot of stuff like that. I really appreciate that. Um, yeah, do more strict correctness methods, and that's one of the things that I think you learn over time. Dota 2 attitude is um, early on in your software career, you're struggling, basically to stay afloat, right? Keep your head above water. There's so much to learn, right? Like arrays often confuse people, and then multidimensional arrays and loops and all of these other things, right? So you're very, very focused on the fundamentals of programming. And it takes a while to get comfortable with that, right? Once you're comfortable with that, then you typically start to focus on languages and frameworks, right? And start to figure out what you like to do, what frameworks feel natural to you, and things like that. And so you become kind of for lack of a better term, you become a framework zealot. And I've done this in the past, right? Um, it, Basically, if you're not doing that, you don't have, well, I won't say that, right? It's the joke that I make, right? um, if you don't go out and evangelize a framework and tear down other frameworks early on in your career, you basically don't have passion, is what I like to joke about, right? It's just kind of a natural progression step, right? And you see this a lot with like Angular versus React, or you know Angular versus Vue, or React versus Vue, things like that, right? You see people always saying, "Oh, my framework's better because X, Y, or Z." Um, sometimes a lot of that's done tongue in cheek. Sometimes people really do believe it, and there's some passion there. Um, so you're learning your frameworks. You're passionate about your frameworks. Once you move to that point, a lot of people kind of plateau there, right? They become very, very good at their framework, and you'll see that there's a lot of React devs. There's a next natural evolution, and Dota 2 is kind of touching on that right now. Um, it's kind of the idea of good, better, best, right? There are good ways to write software, and a lot of people plateau at good. There are better ways to write software, and then there are best ways to write software. Um, your devs who move beyond good to better um, are the ones to watch out for, and they're going to start learning, you know, they're going to start learning, hey, maybe I should put facades around things, and things like that. And then best, I don't know what best is. I'm still working on getting there myself. But there's a whole bunch of theory that comes, um, once you move out of the kind of the trade school view of programming, right? And I don't mean that negatively. A lot of people make amazing careers out of trade school. Electricians, plumbers, right? Trade school is not a bad thing. What I mean by trade school, that a lot of devs don't move out of this, and they don't have to because you can build an amazing career around it. But they don't ever move out of the mechanics of building things, right? Like language features and framework features and things like that. They get stuck there, right? They don't move into more theoretical stuff. And learning that, once you learn the mechanics, starting to move into theoretical stuff allows you to create stuff that makes it easier for other devs. And that's where, like, a lot of people talk about 10x devs. There's a hilarious video on the software developers or people to channel about a 10x dev that you guys should go check out. It's hilarious. But 10x devs, they produce 10 times more code themselves, right? When we talk good, better, best, devs that have moved out of trade focused software development into better and best categories. They're not 10x devs. Quite often, their work doesn't show up in sprints and things like that. But as soon as they're not helping a team, you immediately notice the decrease in performance of the team. The team no longer performs at the level that they were when that person was part of the team. Those devs are much better than 10x devs, and I really look for those kinds of devs to be on my teams. We always need people who are going to write code, but somebody who can take a dev team and make the entire team 5 times better has done way more than if they focused on just doing 10 times more themselves. Hello, Mr. John Angular. Generators in those typed arrays. Yeah. So Chow asked a great question. What do I feel like I'm still trying to wrap my head around? Generators is a big one. I'm very, very old school. My first computer program I ever wrote was written on a TRS-80. So it was from the Tandy Corporation. The TRS was sold by Radio Shack. And my TRS-80 was a color computer too. If that means anything to you guys, if not, you're too young and it doesn't matter, right? The TRS-80 didn't even really have a CLI. You dropped into a basic command interpreter. And so I was writing programs in BASIC. So very, very procedural, right? Where you had like go sub, right? So you would write your code, and if you wanted to do what we would call a function, they were subroutines. But every line number was numbered. And so you learned that you didn't do 1, 2, 3, 4, you did 10, 20, 30, 40, because if you needed to add line numbers, renumbering your whole program and then renumbering your go-tos and things like that. But if like subroutines, if you wanted to jump to a subroutine, you would do like go sub 1010, right? So you would jump forward 1,000 lines, and that's where your subroutine would be. Sagas use generators. I've used them a bit. And Burn of Sigma, it's good to see you. Generators are a big one. Another one that I'm experimenting with now are proxies. and merging kind of like generators and proxies to produce classes that to JavaScript and TypeScript look one way, but internally they're entirely different. And what do I mean by that? Let's go to MDN proxy. So if you guys have never seen this before, it's probably going to blow your mind a bit. It did the first time I saw it. But proxy is built into ECMAScript. Proxy allows you to wrap an object. So this is our target object. Here we don't have a handler on it, but a proxy allows you to wrap a target object with a handler. So this proxy still has message 1 and it still has message 2, right? So it still behaves like the original object. But here, now they're adding a second handler where if we try to get a prop on it, we're just going to return world. So notice here that when they try to access message 1 or message 2, now they're just getting world. And the crazy thing is here, but now that they've added this proxy, any prop would return world. So here they could do dot message 3, which doesn't exist on the target, and you would still get world back. And then you can use like, reflection. So you can actually change the way an object works. So here they're saying, hey, if the target property is message 2, return world, right? And then also get the arguments, right? And so now we look, we see, oh, it's hello world. Redirect handler and cookie handler, yeah, the MVC test helper library, I think, uses this pattern, or at least they had handlers in it for HTTP. Yeah, handlers is really cool, and reflection in .NET is amazing. Yeah, returning a proxy from a components constructor. And one of the ways, this smells like Python in a bad way. Yeah. I read an old book on coupling and cohesion, still trying to apply the concepts. Coupling and cohesion is like Dota 2. You're well on your way to being an amazing developer just from the comments you've made today. Coupling and cohesion, man, once you understand how to break coupling and maintain cohesion, that's awesome. For an Sigma, Python in a bad way. So the problem with things like proxy is that when people learn about it, they abuse it, right? And that's why you probably dislike, the concept here. Where does this come into play? Where does this help, right? Have you guys ever wondered how the deep signals in Signal Store work? So if we go to ngrx.io, right, and we go to GitHub, and we go to projects. No, it's not projects. It is under modules, and it's under store. Nope, signals. If we look inside of here and we search for proxy, let's just take a look at the deep signal. So deep signal, if you guys don't know, is what allows Signal Store to produce kind of the nested signals. So like in a Signal Store, say you have a nested object, right? So you have an object that's nested within your Signal Store. You could do parent parentheses dot object dot property, and that works just great. You could do parent dot child parentheses dot property, or you could do parent dot child dot property parentheses. And all of those signals work, right? Well, how does deep signal work? So if you look, the way deep signal works is they're using a proxy. So your signal is this record, right? So internally, the structure is represented as a record. Externally, they use a proxy, right? And this proxy is what allows it to break down and say, understand where the signal is and how to grab that out of the object and how to update that signal. This is a very powerful way that proxies are used. Now that the streamer is looking at chat, hey guys, have you tried React? I've heard a better tech. Oh, I love you, Obradores. Obradores is a long-time friend of the channel, and very Italian, which gives him super troll abilities. So he does love React. I will tell you guys that. And we've had discussions about React versus Angular in the past. So you're lucky you're a mod, Obradores, or I'd have to ban you for that comment. I don't love React, but what choices do I have? Exactly, right. Okay, so I misspoke. He does work in React more often. And quite often, a lot of software development feels like that, right? Like the tool I'm working, I don't necessarily love, but what else can I do? Just use PHP. Well, we found the Prime fan. So actually, I will be honest. My knowledge of PHP stopped in like the early 2000s. So you should not listen to me about PHP. However, I've heard amazing things about PHP. So modern PHP is not like the PHP I learned. I was speaking with a Django guy, and he was like, everything front end is complicated. And he's right. A lot of architecture for nothing. Front end, I've written a lot of software over the years in a lot of different stacks. I've written, Linux software. I've written, I've written Windows software. I've written, I've written Mac software. I've written all sorts of different kinds of software. Right. I've been front end. I've been back end. For a long time, I thought I really liked back end better than front end. I've since switched to front end. I always keep coming back to front end web. Modern front end web is some of the most complicated software you'll ever write. You're stopped in the early 10s, but I hear the second coming of C#. And I've heard some really amazing stuff about PHP. Let aside React, we can even speak about Angular. It's complicated if you have no idea what's up. Yep. You're doing Django, really, and it's so trivial. I'm not saying that I'm the best back-end developer, but it's so easy, man. And there are a lot of amazing back-end frameworks. And part of what makes front-end development so difficult is with back-end, you typically have strongly typed languages, right? That's not always the case, right? You can work in Node and things like that where it's not strongly typed. You have other potential issues, right? Like threading and things like that. But threading also solves problems that JavaScript doesn't solve for us very easily. A lot of the complication with modern web development is the language that we use to develop in has some very painful, rough edges. And a lot of the complication is getting around that. But there's other issues too that you don't deal with on the back end. If your backend thread hangs while it waits for something, nobody cares because they don't know, right? They don't care. You just know that, hey, I'm waiting for a response from the server. We don't care that the thread is stuck waiting for something. If your UI hangs, people hate that, right? As soon as your UI freezes, and think about this in any application, right? In Windows, the way this presents itself quite often is like you click on a window and you've got the little spinning circle, right? And the window is entirely grayed out, but you've got a spinning circle. On a Mac, it's the same thing, but you've got the beach ball, right? You've got the spinning beach ball. Um, when the UI is frozen like that, people hate it, right? And a lot of times they'll kill your application and restart it, and things like that. So a lot of the stuff we do in the front end is to prevent those situations, and it becomes very, very complicated. So yeah, Laravel, yeah, which is PHP, right? The only thing I've heard about Python is the import-export system. I can't just type like you said or whatever and let it import. I have to import the package. Maybe ES modules is a good thing, guys. Auto imports confused. So I think what Obradores is touching on, and this is crazy to me, right? This is something. So like I'm becoming more and more exposed to Python. I'll say I'm not going to say that I'm good at Python, but I'm learning more and more about it as I do LLMs, right? And stable diffusion models and things like that. You do a lot in Python with anything AI related. The crazy thing to me is if I have an LLM package that relies on, say, Python 3.7, and I have another package that relies on Python 3.11. And so I go, okay, I'm just going to upgrade to Python 3.11, and everything should be fine, right? No, the 3.7 package won't work. And the 3.11 package might not work, even though I'm on Python 3, right? Like the dependency hell in Python can be crazy. That's why you have things like Miniconda, Anaconda, right? Like all of the virtual environments and things like that, because I don't want to make this sound bad. It's just kind of me riffing and memeing and being a streamer, right? But one of the toughest things about Python is that every piece of Python software relies on its own virtual environment. And as soon as you change anything about that virtual environment, you break the entire piece of software. And I'm mostly joking here, right? But I've been through the pain of broken virtual environments, and oh yeah. um, Dependency management was first. The pip and VNV thing is quite annoying. Exactly, right? Pip and VNV, oh. And so, then people invented Anaconda, but then Anaconda was too big, so then you got Miniconda, right? Like, it's tough. A lot of times when I'm dealing with Python stuff, I just look for a Docker container and call it good. Because man, I am not good enough at Python to track down dependency issues and figure out how to fix them. They fixed it system wide at least. Yeah, they did. And it's getting better. It's getting a lot better. And that's why I'm saying I'm just joking and mainly memeing. But man, if you guys get into AI, be very, very careful about upgrading your packages. Yeah. Um, yeah. All right. I keep trying to write code, and you guys are doing an amazing job of pulling me out of it. But anyway, proxy, right? Um, this is how deep signals, like this is the magic inside of signal store or proxies, which is amazing. Um, Learning how to use something like a proxy safely and not expose issues and not also do stuff like you were saying, right? Furno Sigma that, oh no, this is like, Python or whatever. You got to be really, really careful with the way you write software. And that's the other thing that I really struggle with, Chow. And this has always been a struggle with, something that I've always struggled with. is breaking out of the perfection mindset. Um, and it shows up a couple of ways. One of the ways that it'll show up is oftentimes it's very difficult um, for me to want to start things. Um, and what do I mean by that? An easy way to kind of explain this is I'm a huge fan of RPG games. Like I find Baldur's Gate 3 amazing. Um, People who bother me, and this is a personal thing. It's nothing about them, but people who really bug me are people who just mainline the story and like I'm done, right? That really bothers me. Um, yeah, it's basically the equivalent to get attribute in Python, and a lot of us has it confused with get. Ah, that brings back PHP nightmares. Using them in HTTP client makes sense. The cookie proxy, for example, you may want to. Oh man, yeah. PHP had functions that were snake cased, that were kebab cased, camel cased, uppercase, like all caps snake cased, and those functions would all do slightly different things, but they were all named the same with just dashes or underscores or all. What a mess. So get attribute versus get ATT. Oh wow. Um, but anyway, going back to the perfectionism, right? Baldur's Gate. It's taken me. I'm in Act 3 right now. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played. Um, for people who have played and who have finished it, to give you a hint at where I am, I'm in Act 3, um, and so the big three, two of them are still alive. I've done all sorts of side quests and stuff like that. But for me, as a perfectionist, it's really hard to get into the game because I get paralyzed by, oh, I need to do this and this and this and this, right? My brain's like, oh, I've got to do all this stuff. And then it becomes overwhelming. Other places where it manifests is like if your game has collections in it, man, you're gonna kill me because I'm going to work hard to perfect all my collections, right? That's the perfectionist me. Um, yeah, exactly, exactly that for Sigmas. They never complete a side quest. They loved the game and they've moved on. And it's like, well, how did you love it? You missed this quest, right? Like one of the best quests in The Witcher 3 is the Bloody Baron quest line. And it's a sub quest that gets entangled with the main quest, but the whole Bloody Baron piece, and I mean, The Witcher's old enough that that I'm okay telling the story, right? But the Bloody Baron quest starts out with you investigating. Is it a lubberkin? I don't remember the monster type, but basically, it's this monster that is the it comes about because of a child that died inappropriately and whatever, right? And so you track it down. Eventually, you find out that the Baron and his wife had a child. They improperly handled the burial. You fix the burial, the monster goes away. You think the quest is over, and your mind is kind of blown, right? Yeah, a Souls game. Souls games I can't play. I do not have the patience to die over and over again, and I don't have the time, right? That's why I can't do that. And that's why I don't play as many RPGs as I used to. I just don't have the time to get into them. Anyway, the Bloody Baron quest shows up later because you find out that the Baron's wife is missing. And you track her down. And then she becomes entangled with the hags from the story, right? And you find out that she's a monster because of a mark that's been placed on her hand, and she's bound to the hags, and the hags are a big part of the whole game, right? Which is why at the end of the Witcher, when the Witcher shows up you've got the Wild Hunt, and I'm talking about the TV show, right? The end of season 3, where he sees the Wild Hunt and he winds up at the hag's house. I was like, oh, this is going to get good, right? Um, if you mainline the game, you miss the entire Bloody Baron quest, which adds so much context to the rest of the game, right? And that's why I'm always exploring every little nook and cranny and things like that. That shows up in other ways, right? I get paralyzed in coding when I start thinking about the entire project and the scope of the project and what I need to do in the project. I can get paralyzed when I get into code and I'm like, this code isn't written properly, right? Stuff like that can be very paralyzing to me. Learning to overcome that is difficult, and part of that is honestly just me mentally, right? I have a hard time putting things down, just due to various mental conditions that I have, right? Um, I believe the term that's currently used is neuroatypical, right? I'm diagnosed with various things that make me very neuroatypical. Um, and that will show up in various ways in my life. And me understanding how they show up, it helps me interact with people better and things like that. But yeah, but yeah, those are some things I'm trying to get rid of. I've noticed in backend, for example, Django, you do not even have to write SQL because Django ORM does that for you. Yeah, you can modify the class and it does stuff for you. It looks like SQL, but was basically completely eliminated. For front end, we just build stuff on top of stuff. For CSS, you put SCSS on top of it, or Tailwind or some other stuff. We never eliminated the complexity. We just made it worse because now we need to know the abstraction and the main tech. That is very insightful. And most backend languages have this, right? With .NET, you've got LINQ, and you can use like LINQ to SQL, and on top of that, they've got other provider classes that will allow you to use databases in LINQ and stuff like that, and you never really have to worry about the SQL if you don't want to. I still in the backend will get in and write queries by hand sometimes, but that's mainly because I've got the experience and sometimes I know that what I'm doing performs better. I won't do that, however, without proving that what I'm doing performs better, right? And sometimes that's not worth the cost because if I'm the only developer that can maintain a piece of code, I've written some shitty code, right? No matter how good the code performs, no matter how good the code is, if I'm the only one that can maintain it, basically once I'm gone, how does the project continue, right? So that is another place where I'm focusing, right? How do I write code that's not something that only I can maintain? Fundamental thought shift. Western games have you believe that seeing a screen about death is bad or something. It's got some insane opportunity cost. And that comes from the old it comes from the Dungeons and Dragons type stuff, right? Right? If you play D&D, it's pretty hardcore. Your character dies, it dies, right? And then people started building the old roguelikes, right? Like, and we call them roguelikes because the original game was called Rogue, right? And it was done with letters and stuff, and the mazes were all generated using ASCII art, and it's amazing. And then you get, other games like Caves of Kood, and there's so many roguelikes from the old days that you can go and get for free now that have been updated since like the 80s and have this amazing amount of content. They look very much like Dwarf Fortress does without tile sets. And so learning to play them can be difficult, but just the depth of stuff in there, like the number of gods that exist and things like that. But dying in roguelikes was game over, right? And so as they started coming up with more and more video games, there are people out there that believe that dying needs to have a cost, right? There needs to be a cost if the player fails. And so it shows up in games like Diablo, where you lose, you lose armor, right? Your gear quality goes down when you die, um, and then you have to pay to repair it. Which, um, in Diablo 4, where money is harder to come by, that's a real heavy cost and could represent some grinding, right? So you dying turns into a real loss of time. Um, and it can get worse from there, right? Like, you look at like EverQuest, and if you died, you would have to go into a zone and reclaim your corpse to get all your gear back, or your gear was lost. You didn't lose any of your experience or levels, but if you spent tons of time getting your gear, that was a huge deal. And there are zones that were famous for killing players, right? And when I played, I chose a necro for whatever reason, and later on, necromancers have this ability where if they have a coffin, they can summon your corpse from anywhere in the zone that they're in. And it was very lucrative for me to sit at the entrance to some of these zones. Like, if I ever needed money, all I would do is I would just go as a necro and I would just sit at the entrance to a zone. And people who died in that zone would come in, with their naked, their naked player. All they would have on them is a coffin, right? They would hand me the coffin. I would say, oh, it's going to be 5 plat. And they'd give me the money. I would summon their corpse and give them back their coffin with their corpse in it. They would get all their gear and they would leave happy, right? Very stupid mechanic, but it made me a ton of money because of a silly decision I made early on in the game. I enjoy playing games solo. That's the other thing. Like, multiplayer games often bother me. So I'll often look for pet classes or stuff like that that allow me to play a game and not have to worry about parties or other dynamics like that. So that's why I chose the Necro, and it wound up being very good for me. Um, you know, at some point, you could go into zones and start asking for epic Necro gear to summon corpses, and people would get it for you. Um, because they didn't want to lose the high level gear that they had on their corpse. It was by some dragon somewhere that there was no way they were going to go in there and reclaim their corpse. Um, so, just funny things like that. Um, yeah. I would spend count. Yeah, see, and that's the thing, but won't finish the final. Exactly, right? Like, man, if you've never played a Disgaea game, um, don't pick one up. Ciao. Disgaea games are going to be your downfall. The amount of perfecting things you can do in the end, from like item dungeons where you go through an item, and as you go through that item, there are certain ways that you can go through it that will create a higher level item than if you went through it normally. Like, going through the item levels the item up. But if you go through it in certain ways, then you'll create an item of better quality than if you went through it just normal. And that typically shows up in like levels or the stats on the final item or things like that. And then in some Disgaea games, like the grind to get statisticians on weapons. So in Disgaea, a statistician on a weapon allows that weapon to give more experience. Well, why would you want a weapon that gives more experience when the level cap's 99.99, right? Well, Disgaea, you could have a level 1 character and a level 99 character, like 99.99 character, and that level 1 character could one shot the level 99.99 character because that level 1 character has better gear, and that level 1 character has reincarnated a certain number of times, and their stats are better, and blah, 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 right? You need statisticians, and you need 3 level 300 statisticians because that's the most that you can put on a weapon, because that gives you 900% experience gain, which means you gain experience at 1,000 times, which means Once your character is strong enough, you can go to certain levels that are designed for grinding, kill everything in that level, and reach 99.99 in one play of that level, right? The grind to get 900 statisticians is crazy. So that kind of stuff. Knowing SQL is good, but not having to do it is absolutely. I agree with you there, Auto Um, um, yeah, um, very Western media inspired. Yeah, in Souls games, you only lose souls or humanity. In the original Souls series, both leveling and currency. Yeah, yeah, and it's the cost of losing, right? Elden Ring does a fun thing. See, I keep hearing that I should play Elden Ring, where gear is everything. Black Desert, yeah, gear can very much be everything. Levels matter a lot less than gear. Although towards the end, um, so typically Ball is the secret final boss of Disgaea, and then there's an ultimate form of him that's like a Prinny Ball is usually what it's called. Um, the ultimate form of him will have every stat in the trillions, right? To give you an idea, when you first start the game as a level 1 character, your stats are typically, 10 to in the 10 to 20, maybe 30 range, depending on the character. So to go from that range to stats in the trillions to where you have a chance of surviving that final boss, um, takes a lot of grinding, a lot of dedication, and I've never done it before. I enjoy the end game, but man, you guys got me going. Like reverse pirating in Disgaea 2, and just there's so many crazy things in there. Hey, Boss Gans, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate that. Um, let's see. Elden Ring is very easy compared to Dark Souls. Yeah, I keep hearing that Elden Ring is good. Like the one Souls like that I do play, and it's more my love of Star Wars than it is my love of Souls like. Um, is like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Survivor and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed those games. A lot of fun, and it's got more to do with exploring the Star Wars universe than it really does with the games. Like there are parts of the games that just frustrated me, where I just kept dying over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? And it's just that kind of stuff just frustrates me. And the penalty in that is a lot less, but running back to where you were is always a cost of time and things like that. So anyway, I haven't even upgraded. You guys have distracted me so well today. The nerd sniping is very real today. Um, yeah, Elden Ring is very easy compared to Dark Souls games. If it's too hard, chances are you're so stubborn that you've missed the yellow paint. Yeah. Um, and quite often, I will admit that I'm so not good. I try to play through on normal, but if a boss is just too hard, I'll drop it to easy, beat the boss, and then put it back on normal, right? Um, I've never played a Souls game on hard mode ever. Um, I'm just, I'm not that, I'm not that good at Souls like games. I came from the old school beat 'em up days where you just pounded on something, and so for me to hit something, back away, wait for it to do an attack, and attack just doesn't compute for my brain. Um, but let's go in and let's make sure that we upgrade our Angular stuff. So ng, let's add our filter with Angular on it and see what we've got. Yeah, there's no difficulty slider. Um, the the game that has been interesting to me that I've really enjoyed lately is Rotato. That one's been a lot of fun. If we're not talking like strategy and card games, Rotato has some very interesting trade-offs to it. where each character is so different that picking the same stuff for one character versus the other could very easily break one character versus the other. So you're always looking at, okay, through the lens of this character, what, will this break me or will this help me? So migrate. Let's fix the Angular CLI. But yeah, Balatro, absolutely Furnace Sigma. I love Balatro. We've talked about Balatro a couple of times. Michael is much further into Balatro than I am. Um, I have I've unlocked every deck that so I've made it. Is it the orange stake that's the? So you start white, then it's red. Is it green next? Or is it orange? I don't remember. I think it's green. So I've unlocked green stake on a lot of decks, or I've beaten green stake on a lot of decks. So I've unlocked every deck up through there, and I've beaten white on every unlocked deck. And I'm finishing red on two of the decks that I just unlocked. One of the decks that cuts back on the number of jokers that you can have. It's been very difficult for me to make it through the red stake with that deck. That deck feels very luck based. Um, you're gold staking now. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Um, and I love Balatro. Um, like I had a deck where I had a bunch of glass aces that had seals on, like gold seals and things like that on them, and had bonuses on them. And I had jokers that synergized very well. So like my best deck um, was an 18 trillion high score deck. Um, and that was the deck that took me into 12 and 13. Um, and so I'm still working on being consistent with decks like that, right? Because sometimes I'll build decks that have very high potential, but then they also have very low potential. So working on building stuff like that. Yeah. Um, Painted deck. That's the one. That's very much the one. Um, it that deck feels very, very random to me. And it may just be that I don't understand the deck very well. Um, so there's that. I'm also into like strategy, but I love a lot of randomness to my strategy. So one of the games that I play over and over and over again is XCOM 2 with the War of the Chosen DLC added. But then I mod it to add more randomness to it. So I really like randomness and having to deal with randomness in the game, right? Like if the game doesn't give me what I think I need, how do I deal with that? Darkest Dungeon and Darkest Dungeon 2 are also games that I enjoy. I can't play them very long because for whatever reason they raise my stress levels when I play them. And so I can usually play like maybe a run, and then I have to put them down for a while because I don't want to deal with the stress levels. Um, yeah, um, a lot of amazing games out there, right? Let's see. I was going to make sure that we had all the Angular stuff upgraded. This is the ESLint stuff. We'll upgrade that later. This is Jest. And this is the testing library. We'll upgrade all of that later. So at this point, we've upgraded NX to the latest debug log. What is that? I don't even know what that is. We're going to ignore the debug log because we don't care about it. But we upgraded the Angular CLI. And the stream's almost over. And I haven't even finished upgrading. Um, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being uh, so much interaction today. It's been a lot of fun. And hopefully, hopefully the information is useful. Um, what is going 1 hour? I wish I could. Today I have stuff I need to get done. I have family obligations today. So after the stream, I'm going to go get a shower, and then my family and I we're gonna go do some stuff today together as a family. Um, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I need to end on time or as close to on time as possible, so that we can do that. That is the nice thing about streaming. Being on stream, I can roll out of bed, um, get everything set up, and it doesn't matter to you guys how much I stink. So, um, what is in the live? Can you explain a little bit more, Mr. Code? What is going 1 hour? No, I mean in the live. Are you asking, is there something coming up? Or um, painted deck is just eternal deck with an eternal shooter? I'm not sure, Mr. Code. So are you saying you're messing around, or I'm not sure if I'm following you. I definitely want to make sure that if you have a concern, I address it. If you don't and you're messing around, um, thanks for the comments. But yeah, see, I haven't even unlocked like the Eternal Troubadour or things like that because I haven't done any of the challenge runs. Um, so it comes down to time, right? But anyway, let's see, PNPM. Um, let's see, exec NX affected. Let's just make sure all of our linting and tests work right now that we've done this. I want to make sure that we address any issues that came about because of the upgrade. I don't expect there to be any because 18 to 18.2 mainly added like quality of life things. But I don't know if like any of our tests are or any of the libraries were broken by the upgrades. Um, NX Cloud. Um, yeah. So I never connected this one to the cloud. I should turn off the cloud. Um, let's see. I'll figure out how to do that. npm exec nx affected, and let's run our tests. I expect our component tests to be broken, and I also expect our storybook to be broken. I'm not expecting to fix those today. Um, Today, I mainly just want to get our upgrades done. Um, I didn't expect to be. Um, no, I mean in the live and messing around. Yeah. Um, like me getting stuff done is not something I come into streams. That's not typically my goal. Um, that's not true. That is typically my goal. Um, do I have the Inkler? However, if that doesn't happen, um, I'm not like it doesn't make me angry. Um, I don't care if we spend some time exploring stuff, right? Um, I can tell you right now, there's probably good opportunity for us to optimize because the majority of our bundles are in main right now. So there's definitely some opportunity for us to optimize our bundles. Um, let's go here to Zen. Um, and let's go to localhost 4200. And let's zoom in. So here we go. This is our Sudoku game. So if we just create a puzzle, let's do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then here we can go 1. Oops, I can't do that. We can go 2, 3, 4. Here we've got a whole bunch of stuff, so I can't do 5, 6, but I can do 1. And I could also do like a 9 here. That's fine. So 4. Now we could do 5, 6. Oh, we've already got a 5 here. This could be 6, 7, and 8. It's like, wait, how are there different number of cells? There can't be, right? It has to be 9 and 9. So there we go. We've exited out of our create puzzle mode. We can already tell, like, if I put a 1 here, we get errors, and they stay up, right? So being in dark mode makes a couple of things weird here. So there is a bit of that. Like usually the whole row would highlight, but the way this theme is working. So one of the things we probably need to do here is do some better theming for dark mode. But our puzzle solver is also working, and for our puzzle solver, we're using a wave function collapse, which I didn't realize at the time. I thought I was being innovative doing it, but it's a very common way to build Sudoku solvers. so, because it's very effective at solving Sudoku puzzles, right? So what wave function collapse does is it looks at the total entropy, picks the least amount of entropy, and assigns a value there, and then continues on. So we can see that it's fairly effective at solving our Sudoku puzzle, even though it's jumping around all over the place. And we've already seen. So there we go. We just won. So we've already seen a couple of states, right? So right now we're in a win state, and so solving a cell should do nothing. Starting puzzle mode should do nothing. It doesn't. So in this one state, really the only things we should be able to do is reset. Everything else shouldn't do anything. That's not the case right now. So there's one state machine that we've got, right? Is the state machine that would handle the state that we're in now and what happens with these buttons, right? Really only the reset should happen, right? In start create puzzle mode, really I should be able to interact with the grid and create a puzzle. I shouldn't be able to reset. I shouldn't be able to do any of this stuff, right? So there's another state, right? Once we're out of this, we're really in a solving state. Um, and so here, if we've created a puzzle and we go back, um, we need to think about, should we be allowed to go back into create puzzle mode, things like that. Um, you know, Here reset may make sense, but what does reset mean? Do we go back to the beginning of the puzzle, or do we go to an empty state, right? And add winning grid and problem grid, what does that mean? Problem grid is interesting because it's designed to break the solver. Um, so here, this grid that we've put in should get to a point where it gets to an unsolvable. And once it does, it should rewind quite a bit. Yeah, there we go. So it just rewound, right? Because there's a problem state here, and I don't think we can ever get past this problem state. I think this was designed, nope, we can't. But it was designed in such a way that the way this is set up, it's designed to cause a problem later on that has to go back and be solved. Right, and then by setting a winning grid, we can see the winning state and things like that. Really, these two buttons should only be here if we're like in a debug state, things like that. So the other thing I wanted to take a look at, and can I make this bigger? That is not making it bigger. I'm just adding divs here. Can I zoom in here? Oh, I can. Sweet. That's already better than Chrome. We go take a look at the console. I don't think we've got errors in here. Actually, I could just turn off everything but errors. Oh, I can even see up at the top. Once I turn these off, I can see that I've only got 997 logs, right? So our application upgraded successfully. We're okay. Go ahead and shut it down because there's more that we want to do here. Did I commit? I did. So now we're using NCU, and I'm using a history completion piece for Windows PowerShell. So with the F2, I can turn this stuff on and off here. So I can find my history and stuff. It's very similar to like Control R in a lot of like Linux shells and like Linux style shells, right? So we've got mutative, ng mocks that needs to be upgraded, prettier needs to be upgraded. Those can all be done. I think ng mocks we would need to, no, it's just a point release. We're fine there. ESLint plugin, we can upgrade those. So we'll do that. Striker, we don't need to run through migrates. These ones we don't need to run through there. StyleLint, we don't need to either. ESLib, Webpack. ngneat spectator, we probably will. The component store, we will. Really, the ngrx stuff, we will need to run through the migrate command. Angular testing library, we might need to, so we will. And then the TypeScript ESLint. We can upgrade that. ESLint, is it not telling me to upgrade ESLint to version 9? It would be down here. Here it is. Yeah, we're way out of date on ESLint. And that may be something that I want to investigate on stream, is what does it take for us to move from ESLint 8 to 9? I've been waiting for auto migrations to happen, but I'm curious, what's the actual cost of that? So maybe we'll do that on stream too. Um, but let's start with NGRX because we're furthest out of date on this, and then we'll add NGRX signals. So we've got the component store, the ESLint plugin. There are two other pieces that I want to add here that have changed since then. We don't have NGRX component, which means we don't have let or push pipe in our application. I think we removed those once we moved to signals, I believe. NCU, nope. PNPM exec nx migrate. We're just going to do at ngrx /component -store, and that will probably pick up the ESLint plugin too. And that may have to be where we stop, because once we've got those two, I don't know. I think we can probably make it through the rest of this because a lot of it we can do automatically. The tests may be broken, but that's something that we can fix tomorrow. And at some point in time, I'd like to take a look and see if we can get Striker to work. It's not working right now, but I would love to see if I can get it to work in our Angular stuff. That's another thing I'd like to take a look at, particularly because I've been talking about like unit tests at work and what makes a good unit test, what makes a bad unit test. How can we tell, if a unit test is bad? Striker will do a lot of that for us. So there we go. It did upgrade component store and it did upgrade our latest. And there are some migrations to run. So we'll go ahead and paste that, and then we'll put that in the command buffer. And this is why I like NX migrate, because it's using the same commands that the ng upgrade or update. I don't remember which one it is anymore because I haven't used it in a long time. It uses the same commands as that, and it looks for the same generators, but it adds those generators to these files. So we can go look and see the tap response import. So I'm using tap response in my code, and it's telling us that the tap response has been moved to the NGRX component, or out of the NGRX into the NGRX operators package. That was a package I was going to add. This is going to run that for me, so that'll be nice. So we got our component store, so now we should be able to run our migrations, and that should run everything for us. And then once we have that done, the next piece to look at is, did I close Zen? I did close Zen. Now Zen wants to upgrade, so we'll go ahead and upgrade it. So let's go to, actually, I don't need a new tab here. I need to get in the habit of not doing that. Let's just go to ngrx.io. Go to our docs. And like, I love the fact that I could switch to light mode and I'm still not gonna, blind you guys. So we're going to add NGRX signals. They also gave us the, oh, I've got the ESLint plugin installed. It's the schematics. They have store action reducer selector container. effect, entity, and feature. So these are all for like pure NGRX, so we don't need the schematics. And we do have this. And then up here, store effects, router store, component store. We're going to be removing component store and replacing it with NGRX signals. And then they added operators for us. And operators really just moved some of the stuff like tap response into a common package so that we could use it across all of the stuff. So concat latest from is a powerful one. Tap response, map response. Tap response and map response are nice because when you use them, they allow you to set up your effects or your RxJS methods to not crash because they force you to have an error handler. And then they use it in a way that's not going to break your outer observables. Yeah, I agree, Michael Small. The NGRX migration script was really nice. It did a lot of very nice things. And cat latest from is an interesting operator because you'll see, a lot of people will do like with latest from or they'll use a couple of different operators and they don't behave the way you would expect them to. And so very similar to with latest from, it lazily evaluates the provided observable, right? So one of the things about with latest from is it's not a lazy and so the source observable still drives it and doesn't, like the with latest from there's some gotchas with latest from that I'm trying to remember what they are. Yeah. So concat latest from when you're doing selects, with latest from can cause emissions, and it will also not emit until all observables have emitted. Concat latest from, I think, will emit as soon as or as soon as the source has emitted. I need to investigate this one some more. So yeah, they're selecting something from, they're using a selector from a classic NGRX. And so because this is lazily evaluated, if there's something that happens in the selector, that won't happen until update title this effect happens, right? We can prevent our effects from accidentally triggering stuff on our selectors that we don't want to. I don't think you should have side effects on your selectors, but if you do, then this would help prevent that. Anyway, so it added NGRX operators for us. The other thing we're going to do is we are going to add NGRX signals. Let's go ahead and grab they're using ng-add. Let's I think we can do pnpm exec nx add at ngrx/signal. I think that is it. Signals. I think that will work. So this is going to do the same thing as the ng-add. So it will grab signals at the latest. It's going to install it, and then it's going to run the generator that NGRX signals is added that allows it to set itself up in the project. So there we go. So now we've added signals successfully, and that's what we wanted. So let's go ahead and commit this. I don't recommend committing right away when you are in your like production code. I do it on stream because I'm a streamer and pain in me, me struggling produces content. So, that's kind of a silly reason to do it, but that it is what it is. But beyond that, I do it because it forces me to make fixes, right? And I want to show you guys how to make the fixes that you might run into if this stuff happens to you, right? So there's that. This store, what did it do? Oh, it changed the tap response. And because of that, it reformatted the entire store. Everything moved by a line. But why is it such a big change? What is the big change here? It should have picked this up, and then it should have picked up these are different. Like if we look, this is all the same. I'm not sure what the difference is. Oh, there's my family. Add ngrx/component. We'll just say we upgraded ngrx and added ngrx/signal. So we'll go ahead and commit this. I'm going to have to end here. But before I do that, I always want to make sure that I'm promoting good habits. So let's make sure that we run our linters and our tests, and then I'm going to end. Ooh, we've got a failed. Oh, so we've got a failure in our linting rules. We'll have to take a look at that tomorrow. We'll fix that tomorrow, but let's see what our tests. Plugin NGRX recommended requiring type checking. I'll have to take a look at that tomorrow. Tomorrow's a holiday in the US. We're doing stuff today because tomorrow I'm on call, and so I need to be around in case anything happens. So our tests all run. So the last thing we want to do is pnpm exec nx serve, and let's serve our Angular Sudoku, and just make sure that everything serves. Ooh. So my browser's list is outdated. That doesn't surprise me. We'll fix that. Let's actually fix that now. So I highly recommend that you watch your build. Like it can get there can be a lot of noise, especially in bigger projects. But I highly recommend you watch this stuff and fix as much of it as you can. It's going to help you. The other thing that I notice a lot is like at least where I work right now, the TS config files for your projects can get broken. I recommend fixing those up, whatever that takes, because that helps prevent your code editors from getting into a state where you no longer trust the highlights and the imports don't work and stuff like that. I've worked in lots of projects where that's the way. And if you fix them when errors show up, um, it's definitely going to make things easier than if you let things fester and get worse and worse, and then eventually the fix is just way too expensive. Um, so yeah, no target browser changes. Thank you for that. Let's go ahead and serve again. And then I need to end. 10 minutes isn't too bad. Uh, that was cool, but not what I wanted. Um, Forget my default browser is not the browser. Um, so here we go. Things look good. We'll just add our problem grid. I put a 1 in here, kind of break. Great. So it looks like things are working. Go ahead and close. Actually, I'm going to close it all. I'm not going to use this browser. So yeah, we've got a couple of things to fix up. Our linting rules, and if we look, we've still got a bunch of things to upgrade. So we'll go ahead and take care of that. I was looking, so the reason we don't have a dark theme is I remember this project, and specifically this project was designed to force us to learn better CSS. I believe we're using SCSS. I want to move away from that. The big benefit that CSS or SCSS gives us over CSS is like looping and stuff like that. If we're not doing looping, it doesn't make sense to pre-process our CSS. So like if all we're doing is nesting CSS classes, that's now a part of the CSS spec. And so we don't need SCSS or something like that to do nested classes. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for the participation. It was amazing. I loved it. I will see you guys tomorrow. And yeah, you too, TBD gamer. You have a great rest of your weekend too.